Welcome to episode 24 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and enjoy the show, we would really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you like what you see, it would be a big time help if you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is dropping some new content. All right. As of Sunday, June 13th, 2021, the Toronto Maple Leafs are still out of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Obviously, Austin Matthews is showing up to UFC events with Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Mitch Marner is out at the golf course. I mean, it
doesn't get much better than this.
It hasn't been fun the last couple of weeks, Leaf fans, as we watch the Montreal Canadiens become the kings of the North, winning 7 games in a row, as they now await a Final Four matchup against the Vegas Golden Knights. Oh, another thing, the CN Tower in Toronto lighting up in Montreal Canadiens colors. So, yeah, it just hasn't been fun at all. And we are going to get into all that. We're going to preview the Final Four of the Stanley Cup playoffs and talk about some other things, Leafs related, non-Leafs related. It's going to be a jam-packed episode, and I think you're going to really enjoy this one. But before we get to all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Bruno, except for the Toronto Maple Leafs getting trolled in their own city with a blue, white, and red CN Tower. Gross all around. I hope somebody got fired for that, but probably not in Leafs fashion. Episode 24, shout out to Brian McCabe. I will see Brian McCabe as kind of like the microcosm Toronto Maple Leafs player of our era, just like overrated.
He really is.
Yeah, overrated, overpaid. Then everyone realized he was overrated and overpaid, and he just got shit on to no end. Got chased out of town. McCabe made a lot of money in his career. I think he finished in Florida. I remember being in Florida for a while. But yeah, let's do it. Lots to talk about. I mean, Leafs are still out, like you mentioned. So let's talk about everyone else.
Yeah, let's do it, man. And, you know, when it comes to talking about everyone else, the main team that we have to talk about is, like I mentioned,
Who's that?
The Kings of the North, the team that has proven everybody wrong so far. The Montreal Canadiens, who finished with the 18th best record in the regular season this year, that finished with a -9 goal differential. And that team now finds themselves in a Final Four matchup against one of the best teams in the league. They finished second in the standings this year, the Vegas Golden Knights. So we are in for a hell of a series. Lepore, the first question I ask you, okay, this is a big
Here
one.
we go. Getting revved up for this one.
Can the Montreal Canadiens, who have now won 7 games in a row, actually win the Stanley Cup this season?
Whoa, we're skipping a step. We're going even further. Can the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup? No, they can't. I hate to break it to everyone, but the Montreal Canadiens just aren't good enough. I think in so many ways, like step one against the Vegas Knights, I think this series just points to everything being an absolute nightmare for Montreal. Challenge me if you want, but I'm just going to call it how I see it. You've mentioned in the past, you like to throw bets once in a while. And I always find it funny that when they'll point to reasons to bet on something, it's because something's going a certain way and they want to keep going that way. Whereas my mind kind of goes, no, that's kind of got to come to an end. Like say a losing streak. Okay, no, this team's no, it's like, no, well, they got to win eventually. So maybe now is the right time to make the bet. This Montreal Canadiens team that you mentioned finished the regular season in 18th place in the National Hockey League standings, has won 7 games in a row. If I remember correctly, this team hadn't won 4 games in a row over the last 2 seasons. Am I getting that right? And I think even
January 2019.
There you go. So here you have this team that's won 7 games in a row, and things even they can't control beyond the standings. I don't think the break was good for Montreal. Like, you always hear that question come up on the TSN panel or Sportsnet. Oh, is this break a good thing or a bad thing? And one guy says, well, it's a bad thing because they were in a groove. And then someone says, well, it's a good thing because now they get rest. I only can really see this as a bad thing for Montreal because, let's face it, they were rolling. It just seemed like every game, everything was going their way with things they could control and could not control. Everything was going their way. And now you have a situation after a long break where you have to go into Las Vegas. This team has to travel, like really travel for the first time in a while. And you have to go into a building with psychotic fans. And I think especially for the kids like the Caulfields and the Suzukis, that's going to be a big culture shock. Like if the Canadiens get absolutely blown out of the rink in that first game, I will not be surprised at all. And again, like just how everything's teetering in one direction for Montreal, I think they're going to get a big slap in the face in this series. Like just the timing of it seems wrong. Like I mentioned, the break. And as far as the actual hockey goes, I actually pointed to Colorado. I don't know about you, but I pointed to Colorado as being a better matchup for Montreal because I think Colorado is more of a Toronto Maple Leafs on steroids, just like a better version of the Leafs. Where like
that's a good take. I actually completely agree with that because I even sent out a tweet during the Vegas Avs series, and I'm like, this Avalanche team is giving me Leafs vibes. With the way they're controlling the play, dominating, not finishing point blank chances, giving up odd man rushes, turning the puck over. But a lot of Leafs vibes there.
Like hockey god stuff. Like, yeah, it feels like they're going to lose. But yeah, just how Vegas is different than that. Like I said, like how Colorado is essentially the Leafs on steroids. But how Vegas comes at a team in waves. They're a balanced team. They play, every line plays the same way. And they just play so fast. When you're watching them, it's like you're watching a game where like one team's on turbo, like not to sound cheesy, but that really is the case. They just play so fast. They get revved up from that crowd. And again, like I'll call it how I see it. Montreal's defense doesn't have a lot of foot speed. So I think there's going to be a lot of times where Montreal's pinned in their own end and Vegas is snapping it around. And the first game, and again, like sound cliche, like the first game is so important, but I think if Vegas can really show who they are and give a wake-up call to Montreal in game 1, and I think it could happen. Vegas is going to want to make it happen very early in game 1. I think Montreal's confidence could be hit in a hurry. Now, it's up to their vets. I mean, they got the Webbers of the world, and let's face it, this series, I mean, if someone told you, if someone made a prediction, or I shouldn't say a prediction, if someone had the crystal ball and said Montreal is going to win this series, how's this series going? Carey Price is God, is what it is at the end of the day.
Like, I think something crazy would have to happen, and it's probably going like 7 games.
Yeah.
If Montreal ends up winning the series.
Yeah, 7 games and Price is God. Like that will be.
Yeah, Price has like a 950 save percentage. He has like a historically like dominant series.
Yeah, so I think too many things point to like Vegas winning this series. Like I said, the travel for Montreal, not playing in a full building all year and getting that type of environment to boot, and then to reverse it, you don't get that when you're at home. Like that sucks. Like for the Habs, I do feel sorry to not have like a crazy Bell Center, because I'd give them at least a game in the series based on that, like a semifinal game in Montreal, and you'll sneak at least one of those in. But they don't have that. I don't think the break was good for them. I think it's a bad style matchup for Montreal. I think for the kids like the Suzukis and the Caulfields, going into that type of environment is not a good thing. Nothing's impossible, but I mean, the original question was can this Montreal team win the Stanley Cup? I really don't think it's possible for them to beat Vegas. So my answer is no.
And Lepore, my answer to that question is also no. I think there is a 0% chance the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup this season. I'm putting my neck on the line. I don't care. Habs fans, come at me. The Montreal Canadiens, Lepore, are about to receive the biggest wake-up call of all time. let's just go through what has happened to the Canadiens so far. So they had a rough regular season, okay? They were honestly, they just weren't good in the regular season. And you can tell me that they had all these injuries. Listen, at the end of the day, I've debunked this on the podcast. You go through the Leafs injuries this season and you look at the man games lost, it's very similar to what happened to the Montreal Canadiens this year. So don't give me this trash that this team, was injured all season and that's why they were bad. They just weren't a very good hockey team this year. They limped into the playoffs, and yes, they got healthy right at the start of the playoffs, which was obviously huge for them because at the end of the day, yes, injuries do matter, right? Especially when it comes to the playoffs. And what happened in the playoffs, Lepore? John Tavares, Toronto's $11 million captain, played a total of 2 minutes and 53 seconds in that series before his head was taken off by Corey Perry. So you eliminate John Tavares, and where do the Habs struggle? When you look at that Montreal Canadiens roster, anyone who watches hockey knows anything about hockey. You know that they're not deep down the middle. At the center position, they're lacking star talent. They're lacking depth in general. And when you take John Tavares out of that Leafs lineup, what it does is just even the playing field. And that's exactly what happened. Even though the Leafs did take a 3-1 series lead, and, a lot of people thought that series was going to end in 5, and people were saying, oh my God, this team is up 3-1 without John Tavares, without Nick Foligno, their top trade deadline acquisition. Then Jake Muzzin obviously got injured in game 6, but you're thinking, oh my God, this is just too easy. The Leafs have outscored the Habs 12-4 over the first 4 games. Montreal has 4 goals in 4 games. How on earth are they going to win this series? So it's crazy how the Habs ended up coming back. And listen, we've talked about it. We've given credit to Montreal. Kudos to them for finding a way. They won those 2 overtime games. They played a perfect game 7 on the road. And, they deserved it right at the end of the day. But then you go into the second round series, Lepore, and the team catches another break with the Mark Scheifele suspension.
It sounds gross to put it. I always felt kind of awkward telling people that because it was a suspension, but let's face it, Evans for Scheifele was a pretty good trade-off for the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, the Montreal Canadiens will take that all day. And listen, you can have your opinion on, the suspension and whether it was too much or too little and was the hit clean or dirty and all that. We're not even going to get into that. I'm just talking about what Lepore just said, literally swapping out, Evans and Scheifele. Like losing Mark Scheifele is a monumental loss for that Winnipeg Jets team. Like the entire offense runs through him. The power play runs through him. There was a wrench thrown into their lineup essentially, right? You don't have your number 1 center, the best player on your roster after game 1. Like good night. That was going to be an uphill battle. And especially a Winnipeg Jets team that if you looked at the underlying numbers against the Edmonton Oilers, they got outplayed in that first round against Edmonton. And we talked about it. Winnipeg's one of those teams where they don't mind trading scoring chances because they have so many game breakers. So they don't mind getting outplayed, relying on Hellebuck, getting an odd man rush the other way, and Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers coming in and sniping one, right? That's kind of how that team plays. But at the end of the day, like that was a Jets team that honestly, that was a dream matchup for Montreal because you lose Mark Scheifele. It's a team that honestly didn't really dominate any game throughout the playoffs. Even going back to that Oilers series, 3 overtime wins. Like it was just a very weird series, a very unorthodox sweep. So Montreal, credit to them for now winning 7 games in a row. But like you said, Lepore, they are now facing a beast of a hockey team, a team that comes at you in waves, line after line after line. And you have Marc-Andre Fleury in net. You have an excellent D-corps with Shea Theodore, Alex Pietrangelo, Alec Martinez, Pete DeBoer, who's one of the best coaches in the NHL. They just beat the Avalanche, who a lot of hockey fans thought, including myself, was the best team in the NHL. Not even just based on them winning the President's Trophy. You look at how dominant that team was at 5-on-5, how good they are on the power play, how good they are defensively. And Vegas didn't. They just didn't give a shit. They just won 4 games in a row, and that team is flying high, and they have been incredible at T-Mobile Arena in the playoffs. You just look at how they've dominated possession, scoring chances, high danger scoring chances, just 5-on-5 scoring in general, that team has been a absolute buzzsaw at T-Mobile Arena. So you have this Habs team now that has not played in front of a capacity crowd all season. They have this long layoff, and they're going to walk into T-Mobile Arena and face that in game one.
Yeah, that also like points to like no chance of a letdown on the way of Vegas, because even if you're feeling a little passive, a little cocky, that crowd revs you up in 3 seconds. So, and let's do this, right? So,
oh man, that is going to be such a tough spot for Montreal. And who knows, maybe Price plays the game of his life in game one. And I honestly think that might be their only hope, specifically in game one, is Carey Price literally putting the team on his back. But think about Montreal. They won game one against the Leafs, obviously won game one against Winnipeg, and that was huge for them. So now let's see what happens if they drop game one against Vegas. And let's see how they respond and how they can overcome adversity. Because if you think about it, I mean, obviously they overcame adversity 3-1 against Toronto without John Tavares, but that's going to be a tough spot, man, especially if they go down 0-2 those first 2 games coming back to Montreal.
They're not beating Vegas 4 to 5 games.
No, there's
if Montreal goes down
chance.
2-0, it's over.
It is imperative that they take at least one of those first 2 games in Vegas. Like, they have to find a way. But yeah, Lepore, I mean, going back to the original question, you got Vegas in round 4, and then most likely Tampa in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, I guess crazier things have happened, but I'm putting it at 0%. I don't think there's any chance the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup this season.
Yeah, like to your point of that first game, like I touched on it, the first 5-10 minutes are going to be everything. Like Carey Price is going to have to make a huge save or 2 in the first 5 or 10 minutes. And I know it's like crazy prediction on my end, but I really and truly feel that way. That like there's going to have to be something for this series to go Montreal's way, something that we can point to. Whereas like so-and-so had a point blank chance 3 minutes in and Price just robbed him. And like that whole thing of if Montreal wins, what if that went in? And the crowd's going crazy. Vegas has momentum. But like you said, you have the second place team in the entire league versus the 18th place team. That team with real and true home ice advantage. Montreal with the long layoff. The matchup, like I said, with the offensive depth of Vegas versus a team in Montreal that I think everyone would agree can't skate at a higher level compared to the other teams in the NHL, doesn't look good for the Habs, man. Doesn't look good. I think Vegas has it at like minus 450 Vegas for the series. Oh yeah,
just like the series like, odds. Yeah,
like to bet this, and the geeks have it at like 80-something% Vegas. Yeah, like it's the reality of it. And again, nothing's impossible, but any logical statistic or metric or eye test is just pointing to the Knights winning the series, right? And going to their second Stanley Cup final in 4 years of existence. We saw that tweet that was going around. You have 4 teams in the Stanley Cup semifinal. You have a team that is in their 4th season in the league. You have a team that is essentially 18 million over the cap. You have the 18th place team in the league and a team that has Leo Komarov on the first line.
Like, it's just so
hockey. Like, where the hell are we? You know what I mean? Just where the hell are we? But yeah,
like you don't see this in any other sport. Like in basketball, like the best teams just get to the conference finals, and the best team usually wins the NBA championship. And then in hockey, you just have like the craziest shit happen.
Yeah,
it's like, almost how is this even remotely possible?
It makes you just sit back and kind of like evaluate all the time you spend with your brain breaking down your own team or other teams and trying to make reason as to why one team will be strong and one team will not, or like why one team will beat another team. And at the end of the day, it's like we just waste so much time because hockey. Because hockey. And I mean, the Knights are really good, and it wouldn't have been a hot take to have them and the Lightning in the semifinal. But it's just like all these things of like a team that's their 4th year in the league and they've been to 2 finals. Like that is absolutely crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. They've won 33 playoff games in 4 years, 33 playoff games and counting.
Nuts.
Like it's just absolutely insane. And even Lepore, this trash about, I hear Montreal Canadiens fans tell me this all the time. We're built for the playoffs. The Leafs are soft and they suck, and these other teams aren't built for the playoffs. The Habs finished 24th in the NHL last season, Lepore, and then 18th this year. So what? So their formula is let's just be trash in the regular season.
Let's
just be bad, and then when the playoffs come, we're now built for the playoffs. Everybody, like, it's just I don't buy that shit at all. It's like, you build your team to be good in the regular season and the playoffs. You build your team to be good, period. That's
at the end of the day. And like, that's come up a lot. And my take to that has been, well, to be built for the playoffs, you have to, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you don't make the playoffs. And this is, again, like, this is factual. The Montreal Canadiens haven't essentially made the playoffs in 4 seasons, because this year their record was not good enough. Like, whatever their points pace would have been, they were a little over 500. They weren't in the 90s or mid 90s. Like, they wouldn't have made the playoffs in a regular season with their standing this year. Last year, they were the 24th team, as you mentioned. They got in on that play-in. And the 2 years before that, they missed the playoffs. The last time this team legitimately made the playoffs was 2017, and they went out in the first round to the Rangers. So, I mean, at that day, people are going to scream and wave their fingers at me, but that's the reality of it. Like, so it's been 4 years since the team has legitimately made the playoffs, and they're here now. Like, congratulations. It doesn't matter, but this whole built for the playoffs narrative is bullshit. I was, at the end of the day, man, and like, this is something completely different, like, just so hockey. I've always hated that, like, built for the playoffs conversation or heart and character conversation, because you always hear that just when a team gets outplayed. And they win somehow. It's like, oh, like, they purposely got outplayed and played hard. No, you want to have more talent than the other team. Like, and I'll be the first one to say it, kind of like show I'm not biased here. When the Senators were losing to the Leafs those 4 times in the playoffs, the take was always, oh, the Leafs have more heart and character and game breakers, and they've been there before. It was like, no, the Leafs just always had a better goalie. Like, they were getting outshot, outplayed, outskated, and we always had Belfour or Joseph facing Tom Barrasso.
Patrick Lalime.
Yeah, or Lalime, and that's why the Leafs won. But people just look at the team getting outshot, outplayed, and because you're getting outpossessed, you're blocking more shots and you're hitting more because you don't have the puck. And like, oh, that team's built for the playoffs. And it's such a lazy take. Like, I've always thought anyway. At the end of the day, who are the 2 favorites right now? The Knights and the Lightning.
Exactly. Because they're the 2 best teams.
Like, or I mean, the 2 of the best teams, talent-wise, depth-wise, like, built for the playoffs. What does that mean? And again, like, to point to like previous evidence of this, the Lightning went out 4 straight to Columbus 2 years ago. So they just weren't built for the playoffs. And the next year they were.
Yeah. And then magically they were built for the playoffs the next year when they returned the exact same core with the exact same star players and didn't make any significant additions whatsoever. Then suddenly, magically they were just built for the playoffs the next season.
Yeah. And especially a team like Columbus, coached by Tortorella, that hit and had goaltending. Oh, like, it's like the whole Don Cherry waving his fist thing. Yeah. Defense is just brutal, man. Just brutal.
I hate
anyways.
I hate that take so much. And even like one other thing to add about Vegas, because I've heard this narrative that like Philip Deneau is going to shut down Vegas's top line. And well, guess what? Vegas scores by committee. Their leading scorer in the playoffs right now is William Karlsson with 11 points in 13 games. Jonathan Marchessault.
That's their leading score, only 11 points.
11
that's
points
scary.
in 13 games, Lepore. Marchessault is second with 8 points. He's tied with Stone. He has 8 points. Pacioretty has 8 points in 7 games. So actually, since Pacioretty's return to the lineup, Vegas is 5-2. So he's been a big addition for them, just helping them offensively in terms of generating.
He's like I think he's like their second highest paid player after Stone. So at least up.
Yeah, I believe he is. And then, well, if you count in, I guess Pietrangelo is.
That's
but
why
I think he's their second highest paid forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing, right? So it's like, for those that think that, all you got to do is shut down one line, and no, this Vegas team doesn't care. Like, it literally doesn't matter at times, like, who's on the ice. They all play the exact same way. And you could say the Habs play in a similar fashion, really, because they don't have like a quote unquote number 1 line. Yeah. But, I've seen a lot of people even talk about how like Vegas is like Montreal on steroids, which actually is a pretty solid take, I think. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
I get into too much detail, when it comes to that. But yeah, I just think the way that Vegas plays and just seeing them in that Colorado series and just how fast they play, like you talked about Lepore. Like, I just think it's a really bad matchup for the Montreal.
Is there even news yet on Petrie officially?
You know what? I haven't seen
decision,
an official update. I should actually go check that out and see if I can find anything real quick.
If Montreal doesn't have Petrie, oh my God.
Oh, that's a disaster. So what's the last update I'm seeing here? Jeff Petrie will travel with the Canadiens to Las Vegas. He is doubtful for game 1, but this at least keeps the possibility of him playing in either game 1 or 2 open. So yeah, I mean, he could play in game 1, but yeah, it's not looking great, man. And you lose your best defenseman, period, against this Vegas Golden Knights team. Your best puck mover, your just best all-around defenseman who plays, 24, 25 minutes a night. Man, that's not good for this Habs team.
It's a shitty deal. Yeah.
But
not looking good for the Habs. I'm devastated.
Oh, yeah. So do you want to get into an official prediction here for this series, Lepore?
Ooh, I didn't know we were going to go there. Ooh.
You want to do that? Do you want to...
That's a tough call. I'll do it. Let's do it. You go first, though.
Okay,
you brought it up.
You
got to go first. You brought it up.
Okay.
Some time here.
I am so tempted, Lepore. I am so tempted to take Vegas in 4.
Of course you are.
I really am, because I think, things have been going great for Montreal and everyone's on their bandwagon and everyone thinks that, it's sunshine and rainbows and this, the stars are aligning and it's meant to be, and Carey Price is back.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a rude awakening for the Montreal Canadiens. And if they lose game 1, this team is absolutely fucked, in my opinion, because they lose game 1. And again, this is a Vegas team that has been unbelievable at home, especially they're 4-0 in their last 4 playoff games at home. I mentioned the underlying numbers, how dominant they've been just from a scoring chance perspective and a shot attempts perspective. I mean, they are just all over you on home ice. So I'm going to give the Habs 1 game in this series. I don't care if this ages poorly. Come attack me in the comments. I don't give a shit. I got Vegas in 5.
Okay.
And that's it. I mean, I've gone over my, most of my thoughts on this series already. I just think they're a better all-around team. You look at the goaltending matchup, Marc-Andre Fleury, he can stand toe-to-toe with Carey Price.
Yeah.
I love Vegas's decor. I just think they're just a better, well-rounded team. And people forget, like, you go look, a lot of people view Vegas as this team, Lepore, that is just like very strong defensively and has great goaltending and isn't very good offensively. But you go look at the stats, the regular season stats, which a lot of people just forget. Okay, Vegas finished 3rd in the league in goals per game. They were the 3rd best offense in the NHL this season. And in terms of goals against per game, were number 1 in the NHL.
Yeah, their defensive numbers were like hilarious. Like you look at goals against when you look at the standings, and they'd be like 20, 30 goals lower than everyone else. It was incredible.
Oh, it's crazy. So this team all around is just really, really good. And yeah, I have Vegas in 5. So what are your thoughts on that, Lepore?
Just quickly, so you said they were 3rd in the league in goals scored per game.
So I'll just give you. So Colorado was number 1.
Okay.
Pittsburgh was number 2, and Vegas was number 3. They scored 3.39 goals per game in the regular season.
My follow-up question to that is, who is their highest scorer?
Their highest scorer in the regular season, I believe it was Stone. Let me just double check.
Yeah, he was like over a point in a game. So I was gonna say,
Stone had 61 points in 55 games, and then Pacioretty was 2nd. He had 51 points in 48 games.
Okay, so so they had one guy over a point a game, and then to be 3rd in the league. Like, that's crazy, man. Like, that's balance. Like, that's something to get enough attention, actually, now that you mention it. But going into prediction mode, Montreal Canadiens, Vegas Knights. We made a video earlier in the season, and the title of the video, and it got lots of traction, it was called "The Montreal Canadiens Are Annoying." And I think a lot of people clicked on that because they wanted to watch and throw shit at 2 Leafs fans just chirping the Montreal Canadiens. But it was actually a very complimentary video, because we do have a lot of positives to say about the Montreal Canadiens. We really do. So what I'm going to say is, I'm going to say Montreal is very annoying in this series. Get a few more bounces that go their way. And again, reflecting on things that have gone their way earlier in the playoffs and historically for the Montreal Canadiens, there I said it. So I'm going to say the Knights in 6. I'm going to say Montreal is able to get 2 games. Maybe Price steals one, and then one where it goes off 4 people, because that seems to happen in Montreal historically in the National Hockey League. Challenge me on that. We'll start our own podcast on things that have gone the way of the Montreal Canadiens' fortunes. But yeah, I'll say Knights in 6. They end it at the Centre Bell. There you go.
All right. No, Lepore, I like that prediction because, I've been guilty of underestimating the Habs all season and in the playoffs. I picked against them in round 1, picked against them in round 2. So, and I've been hearing it. I've been hearing it on every social media platform. People call me an idiot, this and that. But listen, I stand by my opinions. I back it up with evidence. And if you want to ignore the objective evidence that, we lay out on the table most of the time, that's on you. Honestly, if you want to ignore facts and stats and actual things that are happening, and you just want to say Montreal's built for the playoffs and, everything's on our side, it's all the stars are aligned. Like, it doesn't work like that. Okay. At the end of the day, when you have to face Vegas and then a potential, matchup against the Lightning in the next round, now we're really going to see what
we're
this
getting
team
crazy. Yeah, we're getting crazy now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it should be an awesome Final Four. Whether it ends, quickly or whether it goes a distance, it's going to be very exciting either way. So we cannot wait for Vegas and Montreal. Lepore, is there anything else you wanted to mention about the Habs or that series, or did you want to move on to our next topic?
Before we move on, what's the over-under on how many times the Suzuki Pacioretty trade gets brought up over the next week to 10 days?
Oh my God, they are going to talk about that.
It worked out for both teams, I think. I mean, so nice.
We're going to hear about that, and we're going to hear about Price versus Fleury.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just going to be like the same 2 narratives just drilled.
And you're still going to hear, and like I hate like the team stuff that people use to talk about individuals. Because I think, and I'll say it, I think Marc-Andre Fleury is one of the most overrated goalies of all time. And it's not that he's not good. It's just these comparisons he gets. What was it? They did like the team of like the 2010s. And like he was the starting goalie. I'm like, over Carey Price and Lundqvist. Like, where are we? And like people like act like, and he's got excellent career numbers. So people have him like as this like slam dunk Hall of Famer. This was his first time getting nominated for a Vezina this year.
Is this actually his first Vezina?
It's his
nomination?
first time. It's his if I remember correct, I'm fairly certain this is his first one.
Oh my!
So it's like
goodness.
you've never been in the top 3, and like how can you be a slam dunk Hall of Famer? People put like, and people list his cups. Oh, he's won 3 cups. Well, 2 of them he was the backup. It's like that thing, right? Like I just think, I don't know, and he's liked. I like the guy. He's always got a smile on his face. So. One narrative that'll still be taken if the Knights beat Montreal is like Fleury beat Price, which will be ridiculous because it's a team sport. But that'll be a gross one too on the opposite side that I'm not looking forward to.
And Lepore, you're right. I'm just looking at it right now. This is Fleury's first ever Vezina nomination.
There you go.
Never been a top 3 finalist for the Vezina in his career, which is pretty crazy to think about. But no, I agree with you in terms of Fleury, like. Just in terms of like goalies of the decade, we won't get into this in detail, but Lundqvist, Carey Price, I definitely have those guys above.
Even like Ryan Miller at his best. I mean, a little before it was like he was so good. Like like Vasilevsky now, like guys, like
even like Bobrovsky. I know now he's a disaster with that contract and everything. He won 2 Vezinas. Yeah, he was really good too. So and even Fleury, like people forget last year, like he lost his job to Robin Leonard
exactly
in the playoffs. Like, Peter
the Penguins got rid of him. They exposed him in the draft.
Exactly.
Like, imagine the Canadians exposed Price, or like the Rangers would have exposed Lundqvist. Like, no, guys. That's where I was rolling my eyes. The whole Fleury narrative. People forget too. Remember like that like midpoint of his career with Pittsburgh, how bad he was.
Oh, he had
like
some
awful
brutal years.
Awful. Like he single-handedly lost him that series against Philadelphia, where like everything was going in, like every shot was going in.
Oh, it was
Everything
crazy.
was a terrible rebound.
Games were like 7-5, like
Yeah,
6-4.
brutal.
It was
Brutal.
wild. Yeah, I remember that series. No, and you know what? Like Fleury's having a really good season.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, like credit to him, like, you know, great numbers this year, 928 save percentage. Even looking at his playoff, what's he at in the playoffs? He has a 923 save percentage in the playoffs. So he's been great. But yeah, when you go and you look kind of throughout his career, like, let's not get carried away saying that he should be like in the same tier as guys like,
my God.
you know, like you mentioned, just in this generation, like Carey Price and Henrik Lundqvist, right?
Yeah. It's sad, but it's sad in all sports, but how like people associate winning with individual success. It's just how it goes. And he's had that. So I don't know. Like, oh, playoff wins. That's a team stat. Like the goalie's really important, but you have to be in the right circumstances. And so if we remove Fleury from wherever he was and insert Carey Price, those teams lose games now. Yeah. Like that's always like my take. Like, okay, they get worse if you insert Lundqvist or Price. Like, come on, guys. Like Marc-Andre Fleury. Whatever.
Yeah, just completely ridiculous.
And he cost us a gold medal. Remember in the World Juniors, we all remember.
That's right. That. Yeah, when he shot it off, I forgot which
was it. Was it not Patrick O'Sullivan, or was he like?
You know what? I think it was.
Yeah, I think he brings that up. He used to be on NHL radio. He used to bring it up all the time. Oh, he's like the guy in the photo with his arms in the air. Like whether he was just like the guy beside the net, or wait, did it go off a Canada player?
Yeah,
or
I'm pretty sure
an American
it went off
player?
Canadian player and into.
Oh, even worse.
Yeah, I think it. I actually think it was Patrick O'Sullivan. I could be wrong, but maybe it was a defenseman. I can't remember exactly.
And because that goal was so bad, there was another terrible 5-hole goal he also let in that game that gets forgotten about because of the winning goal. But anyways.
And now watch, Lepore, because the Montreal Canadiens are the Montreal Canadiens, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to allow like 6 goals a game in this series.
Yeah, this is where everything will even out for him.
And they're going to have to go to Robin Lehner. Oh, God. Can you imagine? That would be the most Habs thing ever. Marc-Andre Fleury just like out of nowhere doing a 180 and becoming just a complete train wreck in this series.
Or if Vegas somehow wins and then wins the Stanley Cup, Marc-Andre Fleury will win his 3rd Stanley Cup as a backup. So that's got to be a record. But that'll go on his plaque at the Hockey Hall of Fame. 4 Stanley Cups, but they won't put in brackets that 3 of them were as a backup.
Oh, God.
Anyways, we should get Marc-Andre Fleury on the show.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Great teeth.
All right, man. Should we you want to move on to the next series?
Yeah, we'll touch on that. Why not?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we talked a lot about the Montreal Canadiens and Vegas Golden Knights, and you know, like I said, it's going to be a great series. We're all looking forward to it. But let's talk about this other series in the Final Four, the Tampa Bay Lightning and New York Islanders. So you have this Lightning team, and I talked about this in our playoff preview. I didn't think it was getting enough attention. So they essentially coasted through the regular season, had a great record, finished 3rd in the East Division, or sorry, not the East Division, the Central Division. And
I didn't know what they were called either. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. All these divisions are all over the place. But anyway, yeah, finished 3rd in the Central Division behind Carolina and Florida. And they didn't have Nikita Kucherov all year. And Steven Stamkos missed almost half of the season. He missed, I believe, like a 1/3 of the season. In total, out of 112 possible man games from Kucherov and Stamkos, they got 38 games played out of those 2 guys in the regular season and had a great record, put up great numbers. And then they got Nikita Kucherov back right at the start of the playoffs. You know, obviously, we'll get into
convenient.
Yeah, we'll get into this as well, how, you know, they took advantage of the long-term injured reserve and going over the salary cap and all that. But Nikita Kucherov comes back. This is a former MVP. This is one of the top 5 offensive players in the world.
It's incredible.
And he is just flat out dominating. Yep. He has 18 points in 11 games. He leads the playoffs in scoring. Like, I mean, I don't think that was getting enough attention at all. Like, you're returning a player as good as Nikita Kucherov to a team that good right in time for the playoffs. Like, man, we should have all seen this coming. So now you have this Lightning team that's looking to repeat. and they're facing a New York Islanders team that they beat in last year's Eastern Conference Finals 4-2.
People forget that, The Islanders were in the conference final last year. I think a lot of people forget that. Yeah.
Yeah. Islanders were in the conference final, Barry Trotz. And, that Islanders team, it was pretty much almost the same team. I mean, obviously they've added Kyle Palmieri at the trade deadline, who's been a big acquisition for them.
Beast.
I believe he has 8 goals now in the playoffs. Yeah.
He's been a beast.
He has 7 goals in 12 playoff games. But
people called out Lou for maybe trading too much for him, but he showed up, man.
Oh yeah, it's worked out in the playoffs, absolutely. So you have this Islanders team that was an underdog in their first round series against Pittsburgh. They bounced Crosby and Malkin, and then they were an underdog against Boston because Boston, adds Taylor Hall. They dominated their first round matchup, and everyone thought, Boston's back, man. They got Taylor Hall. The underlying numbers are awesome. And Barry Trotz just says, I don't give a shit, beats them. And they won, I believe they won the last 3 games of that Boston series to win the series. So
that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an interesting matchup. Lepore, I mean, give me your take on this Final Four matchup between the Lightning and New York Islanders.
I am really excited for this series because I think this is a series where if you're a neutral hockey fan, these are 2 teams you can really appreciate. You can appreciate just how the Tampa Bay Lightning are just a total talent juggernaut and score a lot of goals and are a blast to watch. And if, like I said, if you're a big hockey fan, you can also enjoy the Islanders because I hate to beat a dead horse like the style they play, but that team is a unit. Like it seems like they just, I don't know if I've ever seen a team that is just so comfortable in doing what they're good at and what they know they have to do. And there's always those weird things with like teams that kind of play that defensive style where, they're just opportunistic. But like to a greater point with the Islanders, I feel like they know exactly what they're doing all the time. Like, it's not just like we're going to sit back and hope for power plays or a turnover. No, I feel like there's like some like underlying stuff going on there where like they know when to attack and they know when to pounce and they know when to push guys forward. Let's face it, man, like that Islanders team is a good team. So like I'm going to make a point to watch every minute of that series. What really and truly does suck for the Islanders is not having Anders Lee. Like, I think that didn't get enough attention going into the playoffs. And then now when you're facing a team like Tampa Bay that has that much depth, that sucks. Like to have a piece like that, not kicking around, not contributing, like that may be a real factor.
That's going to hurt against a team like this. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And he's one of those guys too. Like he's hard not to like, and how I like to bring up rock'em sock'em terms on this show. He's a hockey player's hockey player. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great series, man. I think it's going to be a long series. I think people are pointing to an easy win for Tampa. But how many times do the Islanders have to show us that they can do this? It's not even just this year. It's like this team. It's like I don't know, it's a thing. Like I find with certain teams, we kind of get these like natural, I'm saying narratives, like these like feelings about teams in our brain where like we think Philly's tough, or we think like a certain team's fast or skilled or soft. It can go the other way too. And like, it's just with the Islanders, we have this thing of like, I don't know, like they're an organization in shambles. They have a shitty arena. Like they were just like a
Tavares, their captain.
Yeah, like they were just a dumpster. They were just like a dumpster fire for so long that I think people don't take them seriously. But this team's fucking good, guys. And like Barry Trotz, you want to question Barry Trotz, like take a look at what happened. That guy was with the Caps. Bang. They're a different team now. That team won the cup, and now they're a first round exit team. He comes to the Islanders, 2 straight conference finals. Like it's proof, man. It's proof. He's a great coach, man. And it's such a great team. It like sounds so cheesy and easy to say, but they're such a great team. And they're enjoyable to watch. Like, and people may attack me for that. I think if you're like a casual hockey fan who's like in it for goals and highlights and whatever, maybe you don't appreciate the Islanders. But as someone who's a geek like I am, and I'm sure like a lot of people who like listen to the show or watch the show, because that's what people do who are geeks, they go on YouTube or on iTunes to find podcasts.
Yeah, I'm the same way, Lepore.
Yeah, so like I think a lot of people like appreciate and really do like the Islanders. They're an easy team to cheer for too, right? Like a lot of likable guys and a lot of personality. So I mean, like who doesn't like Barry Trotz? Let's face it.
I love Barry Trotz.
Yeah.
I personally think he's the best coach in the NHL.
It's hard to argue, like, really, at the end of the day.
He's awesome. We talked about Peter DeBoer, who can also make a case. Like, he's one of the elite coaches as well. I mean, even John Cooper, for that matter, who I don't think gets enough credit with the Tampa Bay Lightning, even though they literally just won the Stanley Cup. Like, that Lightning team now, they've gone on like a 6-year run where I'm pretty sure they have the best record in the NHL over the last 6 seasons.
They have to. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like they're just so good. But yeah, I mean that Islanders team, and it's kind of like Vegas in a way where it honestly almost like doesn't matter because their scoring is so balanced. And I do agree with you, Lepore. I think not having Anders Lee, that's gonna hurt. And I'm just looking at the stats from last year in this series. Their 2 leading scorers against Tampa were Anders Lee and Matt Barzal, who had 4 points in 6 games.
Okay.
And so Tampa did a really nice job, actually, of shutting down the Islanders. And, there's this narrative out there that the Islanders, they play this tight defensive structure, which is true. They get good goaltending. They're able to shut down the other team's best players. But it was Tampa in last year's conference finals that shut down the New York Islanders. I mean, they neutralized them very, very well. And Nikita Kucherov in that series last year, 10 points in 6 games. Braden Point had 7 points in 4 games. So yeah, I guess he missed 2 games in that conference final. I can't remember if he was dealing with like some sort of minor injury but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this Lightning team, they're deep, man. They're talented. They're very, very good. And when it comes to the Islanders right now, I'm just going through their playoff stats. Jean-Gabriel Pageau leads the team in scoring with 13 points in 12 games.
It's crazy. Jean-Gabriel Pageau leads that team in scoring. Yeah, wow.
He's their leading scorer. Then you got Josh Bailey and Anthony Beauvillier with 11 points, Brock Nelson with 10 points, and then Kyle Palmieri and Matt Barzal with 9 points. So think about that. Imagine telling someone that Matt Barzal would be 5th on the team in scoring, and they would still be in the Final Four. Like, that just speaks to that team, man. It honestly almost doesn't matter. Barry Trotz just finds a way all the time to have that team playing the same way. They play consistent. It's like you said, Lepore. They know their identity. They stick to their game plan, and they just find ways to win. But that's a team that I've talked about in the past, not necessarily on this show. But I've said that. Like, what's the ceiling of a team like the New York Islanders?
Yeah, I remember you having that take.
Even like the Montreal Canadiens, for that matter. It's like, okay, we get it. You play that tight defensive structure, all 4 lines playing the same way. But at some point, you're going to need a little bit more talent, right?
Because you can't win 4 times is like what I always say. Yeah.
Like, you're going up now against this Lightning team with they're fully healthy now. Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, Alex Killorn is having a great playoffs as well.
Yeah,
Sergachev, Hedman, Vasilevsky. I mean, you got just some absolute studs on that. Yanni Gourde and Andre Palat. Cirelli. You just go down the list. Like, not only are they deep, like they have elite players. So now it's like how far can this Islanders team actually go? Like, would I be surprised if they won this series? No, not really, because they're a really good team, but like I almost view them in the same light as Montreal, where it's like, can you actually see them beating Tampa and then beating Vegas in the Cup final? Like, that's a tough task, man.
A lot has to go their way. Like, yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. I'm going to kind of go back now. Like, I made fun of the take of like built for the playoffs, like how I hate that take. But if there was one team I would listen to it for, it's the Islanders. I would say, yeah, I'll accept it with the Islanders and just the Islanders, because it's kind of weird too how, like, even say how they beat Pittsburgh in the first round, and Pittsburgh, like, low key had an excellent season.
Oh yeah,
like,
they were awesome this year.
And like Melnick wasn't Melnick. Wow, it sounds on the brain. Malkin wasn't fully healthy all year and came back still beaten up, but most people pick Pittsburgh to win that series. And even myself, I picked Pittsburgh to win that series on this show, but I wasn't at all shocked that the Islanders won. Like nobody was. I think even a lot of people picked the Islanders saying like, hey, you know what? Like we've seen this before. It's Barry Trotz. Like they can do it. Right. So they're an interesting team and I like them a lot. Like I really do. So, and like their crowd's amazing. And to the point of like fans and like I'm old school in the way that like I do cheer for fan bases. That fan base has been through a lot of shit. Like a building falling apart, bad ownership. They did a 30 for 30 on how like their team was like almost bought by a fake billionaire, just like total joke, like just messes all around. And to have this team in back-to-back conference finals and looking good, it's great, man. Good for them. Like what a crowd, man. What a crowd.
Yeah, that crowd. Oh my God. It's like that crowd and the Vegas crowd are basically like 1-2, just in terms of like how electric they've been.
Yeah.
Especially when you just think about like recent playoff runs.
Yeah.
Unreal,
It's funny how
man.
different crowds have like different personalities. Like how Vegas just seems like loud and excited and bananas. Whereas the Islanders, like I watch, I'm like, that's intimidating.
Yeah.
Like that
I'm
just
like,
feels
I'd
like
be like legit scared as an
scared.
opposing
Like,
player.
yeah, it's crazy. Like Vegas has got like the sirens going off, those like smoke things, and people are loud, like which is great, and that's who they are, and that's their personality, and that's awesome. But I feel like with the Islanders, it's like I don't want to call it mean, but it's like, yeah, I'm a little nervous going out there skating for the other team. It's like the ceiling's gonna collapse on you or something. But it's awesome.
Oh yeah, they're
man, so.
ruthless, man. Those fans, and honestly, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Even we all know like the John Tavares pajama
Yeah,
boy
whatever.
chants.
That's fine.
And some of the other chants they've come up with other teams. But yeah, that crowd is ruthless. They're passionate, and honestly, it's awesome to watch as a viewer. It really is. But
so what's your prediction for that series?
Yeah, let's get into our predictions here. So, you know what? As great as I think Barry Trotz is as a head coach, and you know, we talked about how well balanced the Islanders are and how committed they are to their identity. As great as all those things are, I think it's going to be a repeat of last year's conference finals. I think the talent of the Tampa Bay Lightning is going to be too much. Kucherov is almost at 2 points a game in the playoffs. We saw him torch the Islanders when they met in the conference finals last season. So, you know what? I'm going to give a little bit more respect to the Islanders here, and I'm going to say it's going to be an exact repeat of last year's conference finals, Lightning in 6.
Okay.
So that's my official prediction for that series.
I'm going to go one further. I'm going to say Lightning in 7. I'm going to say I just think we're going to get a great series. We have a clash of personalities. We have 2 good coaching staffs. We have goaltending, different styles. I think it's going to be a blast. I really think this series is going to be a blast. And I say I have the Lightning in a long series, 7 games, maybe like a game 7 in overtime type thing, like something like that.
Like that would be awesome.
Yeah, like I'm really and truly looking forward to this series.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. And even Lepore, another thing you brought up there with the goaltending, like, yeah, even like we all know Vasilevsky, but on the Islanders side, they've played Varlamov and Ilya Sorokin in the playoffs, and both of them have been excellent. So,
Varlamov, yeah,
2 just really good teams. We're both on the Lightning, but neither of us would be surprised if Barry Trotz and that Islanders team
bet against them. I dare you. Yeah.
All right, Lepore, let's get into our next topic here, and it does relate to the Tampa Bay Lightning, the team that we just talked about. So Carolina Hurricanes defenseman and pending free agent Dougie Hamilton.
Pending Toronto, maybe. I mean,
hey, a lot of Leaf fans think he's coming. So
wait a second. Leafs fans think an upcoming free agent is going to sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh my God. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Leaf fans think star NHL player is coming to their team.
He's from the GTA. That's always like,
it's a lock. He's from the GTA. How could he not sign with the Leafs, Lepore?
Yeah. It seems like that only works with the old washed up guys, but anyway, not Tavares, but everyone else.
Man, I love it. But so Dougie Hamilton was asked, you know, like, what Carolina could have done better, because Carolina, they finished as the number 1 seed in the Central Division. I was very high on them. I thought they were going to make a deep playoff run, and obviously they ran into the buzzsaw of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But yeah, Hamilton was asked, like, what went wrong? What could Carolina do different, or what could they have done different? And how could they improve moving forward and things like that? And he said, quote unquote, we lost to a team 18 million over the cap.
Boom.
And he's not lying. When you look at the cap numbers, I believe the final total for the Lightning is like $98 million.
Yeah, I saw like earlier today. It's like 98 million.
Because obviously they were stashing Nikita Kucherov on LTIR. He had off-season surgery. And, there was a lot of people speculating that Kucherov could have come back before the start of the playoffs. Like, there were reports late.
Oh, he was skating for like 3 months or something. Yeah,
like he was skating in like a regular practice jersey, like well before the playoffs started. And everyone's like, okay, like let's stop with this charade here. Like Kucherov could be in the lineup tonight. And they're clearly just stashing him for cap reasons. And they're honestly looking at the Lightning, like there was no need to rush it. They came off their Stanley Cup last season. Kucherov, their best player, has off-season surgery. Like they were coasting through the regular season. And they said, honestly, like, screw it. When Kucherov comes back, we don't have any problem integrating a former league MVP, one of the top offensive players in the league. Like he's going to fit in no problem. And that's exactly what's happened, Lepore. But give me your take on these Dougie Hamilton comments about the Lightning being $18 million over the cap.
Not 50 million, 18 million over. Yeah, so Hamilton's a smart guy. Like, I actually like the way he did it. Like you brought up, he responded answering a question about how Carolina can get better or how they can put themselves in a better situation to succeed. So it's not like he came out screaming like a baby. So like I appreciated how he brought that forward. With his point about Tampa being in this situation, it is sneaky. Okay. Like let's all call a spade a spade. What they did is sneaky. What I do think though, I think for something like this to happen, and you went through how it broke down, the stars really had to align for them to make it work. Like number one, those players were hurt. Okay. And then you have the situation of like the timing when they can come back. But I think more importantly, we're in a shortened season and we're in I'll call it a COVID season. So I think in normal circumstances, because everyone's bringing up, well, what's stopping this team from doing this, and Matthews to do it with the Leafs and McDavid to do it with the Oilers, and they just get loaded and add them in the playoffs. You need the player to agree, right? Like let's say it how it is. Those players knew what was going on. So you have to get the players to agree to execute the situation the way it needs to be executed. I think in a regular 82 game season where all things are normal, I don't think star players are agreeing to sit out half a season or an entire season so a team can load up. No, like players have pride. They care about their numbers and they want to play. So I think a lot of things aligned for Tampa. So I'm not going to go in full bonkers mode that this is absolute madness and they shouldn't be able to do this. But what I'd like to bring up, and I enjoy doing this anytime anyone has a problem with something, is I challenge them to come up with a solution. So what would be the solution to stop teams from doing this? Like a fair solution that can work across the board. And I don't really know. Because, like, let's face it, this rule was put in place because if a team does have an injury, they should be able to, or the league thinks they should be able to kind of fill up that cap space another way. Well, then is it okay to tell that player that they can't come back if they're ready for the playoffs, or for that team to have to completely reshuffle everything to be under a certain cap come playoff time? Like, I'm open to that discussion, like yes, no, or maybe, but I don't really know. I don't know what like the perfect solution for it is. I don't think it's really going anywhere because as far as I know, this has been in place since the introduction of the cap. So I don't know. Like it is gross. So like what they did was sneaky and it worked out perfectly for them. And I think this would be a lot bigger story if they were in a different market. Like if they were Boston or the Rangers or Philadelphia, or God help us if this was the Toronto Maple Leafs doing something like this. Like this would be the front page. Like I'm an old person where people actually used to buy magazines and read newspapers. It'd be all over Twitter and it'd be the front of every website. So I don't know. Like I'm not completely freaked out about it. I think it sucks. I think it sucks that we have this kind of situation, but until I could hear a solution to how to stop this in the future, I'm not going to say I'm okay with it, but I'm just kind of like, well, it is what it is. And they did it and they didn't break any rules. So where's your head at with it?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's like players and teams and fans can complain all they want, but this is the rule right now. And I haven't seen a lot of people complaining about this in the past. I think this is just one of those unique situations. And not that it hasn't happened in the past, but this year in particular, it's been more magnified because you have the Stanley Cup champions that are, manipulating it this way. And it's Nikita Kucherov, one of the best players in the world. And that's why I think a lot of people have been rubbed the wrong way. And especially like I mentioned, how you're seeing the reports from the Lightning beat reporters and they're, tweeting out videos of him skating and being involved in team practices like a month, 2 months before the start of the playoffs. And people are like, what the hell is going on here? But it's like you said, Lepore, right? The player has to agree to this. And when you think about Kucherov, like he didn't have like a minor, injury or ailments. Like this dude had like a major surgery in the offseason. So, it's understandable that it took him months to rehab and get back into shape. And I get it. He could have played. Let's just call it like it is. He could have played before the start of the playoffs, but the way the Tampa Bay Lightning saw this, they use it to their advantage, and they're a smart organization. I mean, why do you think Tampa over the last, 6-7 years under John Cooper have the best record in the NHL? Why do you think they draft so well? Nikita Kucherov, he wasn't a first round pick. Braden Point was a third round pick. Okay. Yeah. They've built their, look at guys like Yanni Gourde, right? Even like the trade that they made getting Sergachev, shipping out Drouin. Like this team year after year just makes smart decisions and they make calculated decisions. And for the most part, it always seems to work out in their favor. So honestly, it's like kudos to the Tampa Bay Lightning. If that's the rule in place and you're a smart organization and they're a team that's proven that honestly, they're smarter than pretty much every other team. Like they're right up there as like
smarter than ours.
100%. I have them right up there as like, if not the savviest organization, like in the top 2 or 3, just in terms of their decision-making year in and year out. And they saw an opportunity to take advantage of this, and Kucherov was on board. So yeah, I mean, credit to them. And Lepore, in terms of like coming up with a solution, it's just tough. Cause like, like you said, I don't know if I'm pretty sure it's been in place since the salary cap was instituted. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, it's like, how do you fix something like this? Right. It's just, it's a very difficult situation in terms of like, I don't know.
The logistics of like how it could work. One thing I thought of is maybe do it like at a lower rate. Like you can fill, let's say you have a $10 million player who gets injured, and it's playoff time and he comes back. Maybe you can go like, hey, if that $10 million player comes back, you can go 50%. So you can go like 5 million over the cap, like something like that. So it's kind of more fair. What I say fair, it's whatever's fair is whatever the rules are. But what I'd like to see is like, what's the take from some of the owners? Because at the end of the day, like people point to different rules and what's fair and what's not. But what's significant is how the guys who own the teams feel, because a situation like this, we have a league where there's a lot of disparity in organizations and revenues, abilities to spend, not just on players, but on facilities like medical staff, coaching, development. If an owner of a small market team raised his hand and said, guys, like I can't go 18 million over the cap. I can't, based on what comes in, I can't afford to do that. That'd be interesting. Like I'd like to see those takes of owners saying it's hard enough for me to compete as it is. I'm grateful that we have a cap and that team's going 18 over. How do I compete? So like that's something that may enforce like a push here. Like if you do have some ownership group saying like, no, like if we allow this to happen, like I have little chance as it is to like compete for a championship. So
Yeah,
I'll
if you're
have
like the
absolutely
Arizona
zero chance.
Coyotes, right?
Yeah, like let's face it, like that's the reality of this league. So that's where I could see if like a lot of feathers were ruffled that way, maybe. But I don't know. And but that all being said, usually like rules don't get changed until something drastic happens. And maybe if the Lightning win the cup, this is considered something drastic because of how high they went over, and then owners flip out. It'll be such a bad look too. I told my buddies, I'm like, nothing's gonna happen because I think what would push it would maybe be the Lightning winning the cup, because if they didn't win the cup, you could say, well, they didn't win the cup. So what did it really and truly matter? But let's say they do win it. And then let's say this summer, we're already in the summer, but in the offseason, the NHL comes out and says, well, we're going to change this rule. That's a bad look to change it right after. So maybe they wait a collective bargaining agreement or two to change that rule, just so it'll be a total like joke if they make that rule change right after a team wins the championship because of it. But to sum it all up, I don't think that we're going to see anything happen to it anytime soon anyway, for that matter.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And I think you made a good point about owners, right? Like we haven't heard anything from the owners on this, as far as I know. Like nothing's been leaked to any of the reporters, any of the national reporters or anything like that I know of. So yeah, maybe it becomes, becomes a bigger discussion. Like you said, if Tampa actually repeats and then they go into those owners meetings and there's, a couple of these owners of these, teams like Arizona and, some of the other teams in similar situations, and they start freaking out about what happened and saying, well, we can't, like you said, we can't compete as is. We can't even get to the salary cap floor, let alone, go $98 million with our salary cap going 18 over. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's one of those situations where right now, I don't think it's going to change either. We'll see what happens if Tampa repeats, and then maybe things will get interesting in that regard. All right, Lepore. So before we wrap this thing up, any final thoughts on the final four matchups that are going down in the NHL? Vegas, Montreal, Tampa Islanders, or any other thoughts you might have before we wrap up this show?
Nothing overly exciting. I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked to see, like I said, that Isles and Lightning series. I think that could be something we're talking about for a long, long time. And the Habs are a great story. Like whether you're a Leafs fan or cheering for any team not named the Montreal Canadiens, the Habs are a great story. They've been the underdog going through this postseason, and now they're facing a juggernaut of a team in Las Vegas. So it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But hopefully we get two really good matchups, two long series, and put us at a perfect point for a Stanley Cup final, man.
Yeah, you said it. It's going to be awesome either way. And listen, I know a lot of times on this podcast, sometimes, you guys call us Montreal Canadiens haters, especially me. I think I get that a little bit more than Lepore, just because
everyone hates Bruno.
Just because I've been, I've been peeling back the layers of the Montreal Canadiens and trying to expose the team that they actually are. But listen, like Lepore said, credit to the Habs, man. They've won 7 games in a row. They're in the Final Four. They're the ones who are laughing.
We're not.
Yeah. They're the kings of the North. So, you know what? Credit to Montreal. And it has been an amazing run. It really has. I mean, no one saw this coming. And sometimes that's the best thing in sports, because yes, do we all want to see the best teams win the championship? Honestly, I'm usually that type of person. Like when it comes to any sport for that matter, like the team that deserves it most, that has the best roster, the best players, that plays the best all season long, I usually like when that team wins the championship. But sometimes when you throw a wrench in things and things get all crazy and wild and wacky, and the Montreal Canadiens make the Final Four, that's what makes sports so amazing. So
that's why we watch it, man.
So at the end of the day, it's going to be an awesome Final Four. Vegas and Montreal, Tampa and the Islanders. It's going to be great. So that is going to do it for episode 24 of the Gluttons for Punishment podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. stay tuned for our next episode where we will get into some more Leafs talk. I know we didn't talk about them on this podcast very much at all, but we'll definitely give you some more Leafs content, and we'll have more reaction about these Final Four series. And hopefully at that point, when our next show comes around, we'll actually be looking forward to the Stanley Cup final. So it's going to be an awesome next week here. So stay tuned for our next show. And that's going to do it for Lepore. I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching. One final thing I'll add in, like I always say on this show, it takes 5 seconds. If you enjoy the content and you're a listener, it would help us out big time if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And then, of course, on YouTube, it would be an even bigger help if you just smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is dropping some new content. But that's going to do it for us, and we will see you guys in the next one.